Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 531 of the Unpopular Podcast. It's the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not really asked you to agree with me. I'm asked you to hear me out. Thursday night football. The Packers going up against the Washington Commanders. The Packers ultimately beating the Washington Commanders 27-18. Proved a lot of what I thought going into the season. Now, this is only technically week 2, but a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas that I had going into the season about both teams was proven in this game. I'm going to start with the Green Bay Packers. My view, I should say, of this team changed once they got Micah Parsons. Not only is Micah Parsons one of the best defensive players in football, but I felt that the Green Bay Packers, even though they did have a good defense before Micah Parsons, I didn't feel like the Green Bay Packers could lean on their defense in a sense, especially their pass rush, if Jordan Love and the offense wasn't clicking. And we've kind of seen that the last few years. Even though their defense is good, when Christian Watson goes out or Romeo Doubs goes out, or like this game, Jalen Reed goes out. The defense hasn't necessarily always been able to overcome an inept offensive game. And when you have somebody as erratic as Jordan Love has been in his career, you know that those games can come where you're going to need to lean on your defense because, Jordan Love may have 2 or 3 interceptions, or Jordan Love and the offense just can't get clicking. That happens in every sport. That happens for every team. But the Green Bay Packers, when you think about them and when you look at the construction of the team, you would think that they are a Super Bowl caliber team. Or let me say this. You would hope that they're a Super Bowl caliber team because they have one of the best teams in football. It's just before Micah Parsons, I didn't think one unit can carry the other if the other one is down. Let me explain to you what Micah Parsons does to a team, or what Micah Parsons' presence does to a team. It allows you not to worry about a position. It allows you to not have to worry about a whole position on the field. You don't have to worry about your pass rush because you have one of the best pass rushers in football. You don't have to worry about, are you going to be able to get to the quarterback because you have to solely focus on one of the best defensive players in the league. On top of that, it makes someone like Rashawn Gary's job much easier. It makes someone like Xavier McKinney's job much easier because the whole focus is on one guy when you have dominant players all over the field for the defense. But because Michael Parsons is him, you have to uber focus on that, and you may lose focus somewhere else, or you may have to take some of your assets and go somewhere else. Or take your assets from somewhere else to focus on Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is the ultimate son. He is if you do not, everything on the defensive side of the ball orbits around him. And that's just because he's that great of a player. So when you add that to a team that already has a great defense, they just maybe didn't have that that finisher, that closer, that 1-2 punch, you got it with Micah Parsons. You see, when I was doing my NFC North breakdown, and I said that this was going to be one of the hardest divisions to rank because you can see any one of those teams coming out of the division. This was obviously before Micah Parsons. I kind of feel like Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers, in a certain sense, is in the same vein of when Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles. I know it's a different position and different uses, but that type of impact is what Micah Parsons has to a team. Why do you think the Eagles made such a huge offer? I don't know if you guys saw the offer that they offered Dallas, but it was a gargantuan offer, probably one of the biggest offers you've ever seen, because you know the type of person and the type of impact that Micah Parsons brings to a team. I said this after week 1, and I kind of said this before week 1, but I wanted to wait to see because obviously, the news came out about Micah Parsons and his back issue and this, that, and the third. But I said this could be a seismic change if Micah Parsons is the person that he is projected to be on this Green Bay Packers team. And through 2 weeks, he has done that. Which is why when I did my ultimate final prediction, when I gave my NFL awards, when I said who was going to be in the Super Bowl, I had the Green Bay Packers going to the Super Bowl. That's how impactful Micah Parsons is to a team, let alone a team as good as the Green Bay Packers before he got there. Like I said, I don't know if the Philadelphia Eagles would have made it to a Super Bowl and ultimately won a Super Bowl if they didn't have Saquon Barkley. But what Saquon Barkley did was put them over the top. They already have the best roster in football. Saquon put them over the top. Let's go to Thursday Night Football. They say that there's levels to it. They say that there's levels when we talk about football, when we talk about basketball, when we talk about teams. There's levels. And the Green Bay Packers showed that as currently constructed, they are on a different level than the Washington Commanders right now. From the offensive line to the defensive line to the offensive weapons to the defensive weapons to the back end, the Green Bay Packers are operating on a different level than the Washington Commanders, and it was clear as day. I know when you look at the score and it said, they only lost by 9 points. It wasn't that close. To be completely honest, I know that Green Bay only scored 10 points in the fourth quarter and 13 points in the second half, but they kind of took their foot off the gas. It was clear that there was just you're playing a different. These are two completely different level teams, at least on Thursday Night Football. And to broaden it out, and like I said before, when Jordan Love plays this good, Jordan Love was 19 for 31, 292 yards. His average pass went 9.4 yards. He had a quarterback rating of 113.99 or 113.9. When Jordan Love is playing this good, when you have Josh Jacobs 23 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown, when you have Tucker Kraft looking like arguably the greatest tight end you've ever seen, 6 receptions for 124 yards. I know Jaden Reed, I think he broke his collarbone. He's going to be out for a minute, but you still have, even though Matthew Golden didn't, had 2 targets, he dropped Romeo Dobbs, you still have a really good core. And they're still waiting for Christian Watson to get back. I said it. There's a reason why I picked the Green Bay Packers to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Because when they play to the best of their ability, when Jordan Love doesn't put the ball in harm's way, when the defense is firing on all cylinders, which we've seen the first two weeks, which is also crazy because Micah Parsons was traded to this team a week before the regular season started. So he hasn't even got acclimated fully to this team, and they already look incredible. There's not much analytics that goes into it. This Green Bay Packers team is a complete team. The only thing I could see derail them is injury, and we did see that last night, and that's something that's kind of permeated the Green Bay Packers for a few years now. They get hit with a lot of injuries, especially at their skill positions, like the wide receiver position. And we saw Jalen Reed get hurt on Thursday night. So that's the only thing I can see derail them. And this is also coming off the backs of, now obviously I'm going to do my prediction for or the rest of week 2. But this is also coming on the backs of the Eagles not looking great. But even that, if the Green Bay Packers do find themselves going up against the Eagles, I could see that being a shootout. And I trust this Green Bay Packers team in a shootout right now before I trust the Philadelphia Eagles, at least from what we've seen from week 1 or from week 1 to now. Thursday Night Football showed that right now the Green Bay Packers are just on a different level than the Washington Commanders. And one of the big reasons is Michael Parsons is like a son. Everything revolves around him. And that's just because of how good he is. And when everything evolves around him and he's playing to his best, this team is hard to contend with, to beat. And we saw that on Thursday night. We also saw that week 1 against the Lions. And that brings me to the Washington Commanders. Now, obviously, we all know that the Washington Commanders is my favorite football team. We know that I rep hard for the Washington Commanders. And when I did my NFC East predictions, I gave a bias analysis about the Washington Commanders, and I gave my unbiased analysis about the Washington Commanders. I just felt that was fair because I didn't want to just go into it saying, oh, this is my favorite team, rah, 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 this is what we're going to do. No. As of right now, Thursday night showed me why the Washington Commanders are not a Super Bowl contender. Thursday night showed me, and like I just said, that the Green Bay Packers, a team that is a Super Bowl contender, is just on a different level than the Washington Commanders are right now. Meaning the Washington Commanders should not consider themselves a Super Bowl contender. Every single fear I had about this Washington Commanders team going into the season, we saw on Thursday Night Football. What were my concerns, you ask? I got you. Concern number 1 was we're the oldest team in football. And one thing that I know about football is you don't get healthier as the season goes by. Your body wears down more, obviously. And I was wondering how long this team was going to last, if they could last the entire season playing at a high level. It took 2 weeks. And now Austin Eckler tore his Achilles. That's going to be huge, especially after you traded Brian Robinson to the 49ers. And I think we lost a defensive player as well. This is just 2 weeks in. On top of that, speaking of defense, that was my biggest concern going into the season. I said, last year, the defense struggled, especially stopping the run. And I didn't feel they did enough in the offseason to really address that. Yes, I'm happy that they got Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel played an okay game, 7 receptions for 44 yards and a touchdown. Yes, they read up on Terry McLaurin. I think that was important, and that was smart to do that. But they didn't really address the defense as much as I thought they should, especially after we saw last year what the great teams did to us, especially in the run game. And while I will say that the Commanders did a decent job these first 2 weeks, but if we're looking at just Thursday Night Football, they did a decent job stopping Josh Jacobs. 23 carries for only 84 yards is pretty good. The back end started leaking. You know what the Washington Commanders are? Or you know what they've been? They've been a sturdy house with a couple holes in the ceiling. Not large holes, but a couple holes in the ceiling. Now, was that house still livable? Yes. When it's a sunny, beautiful day, do those holes really cause an issue? Not really. I mean, they might be tough to look at, but they don't really cause an issue. When do those holes start to become a problem? When it rains, when it snows, inclement weather. Then you start getting drips. You start getting drops. You start getting water coming into the house. You'll put a bucket down one, and that solves the problem for a minute. Oh, but there goes another hole right there. So now you got to find a whole nother bucket to put in that hole. Oh, shoot, there's a hole right there. So now you have 3 buckets. Oh, but don't forget the first bucket is kind of overflowing now. So now you have to replace it. Needless to say, the house is still livable. But once there's inclement weather, it starts to become an issue. I feel too many times last year and these first 2 games, Jaden Daniels' greatness was the bucket. Jaden Daniels' greatness was the bucket that the Washington Commanders were putting under those holes. One of the holes being the defense, especially the run defense. One of the holes being the offensive line. One of the holes being the skills position. One of the holes being the back end of the defense. There were so many holes, but because Jaden Daniels was so good, he was able to be the bucket to catch the water. So now you don't have a wet floor. But like I said, sometimes, a lot of times, if you put that bucket there for long enough, it's going to overflow. Yes, Washington did a good job stopping the run. But you let their tight end get 6 catches for 124 yards. Don't get me wrong, Tucker Kraft is good, but he's not. That's Travis Kelce, prime Shannon Sharp, prime Antonio Gonzalez numbers. That ain't Tucker Kraft. And I don't know if you noticed how many times not only Jordan Love threw it to a wide open receiver, but they let it fly so many times for huge games. And then you talk about the penalties. When Jaden Daniels was drafted and before Jaden Daniels had the season that he had last year, Washington was looked at as a rebuilding franchise. Understandably so. And the greatness of Jaden Daniels sped up that process, again, making it to the NFC Championship. And my fear was that clouded people into what we're really seeing. And we're seeing a team that is good, but still incredibly flawed. And we saw exactly that fear, exactly why I don't think Washington, at least this year, is a Super Bowl contender. Because when you went up against a team that is a different caliber than the New York Giants, you lost 27-18. And quiet as it's kept, Jaden Daniels hasn't played great these first 2 weeks, but again, look at the offensive line has been great, and you played two really good defenses. The Giants defense, especially their pass rush, and then Micah Parsons, Rashad Gary in the Green Bay Packers week 2 on a short week. Now, before I move on and before I give my predictions on the rest of the week, people can say, well, Jalen, you don't think you're overreacting because it was a short week. It was Thursday Night Football. You don't think that you're just being a hyperbolic fan? I would understand that thinking if the way that Washington lost on Thursday night was the same way they lost several times last year. More specifically, outside of the turnovers, because Washington didn't have any turnovers, more specifically how they lost in the NFC Championship against the Eagles. We've seen this story. When Jaden Daniels isn't able to be Superman, this team struggles. And now, I don't know what we're going to do at the running back position. I know Jacoby Crosskey Merritt, who's a rookie, he's going to get the load of it, but pause. Whoa. Because Austin Eckler tore his Achilles. But I don't know what we're going to do because you gave up Brian Robinson, who would have been a great option to go to. I think Washington is a good team. I think they're going to be a good team. I think this is going to be a good season for them. But it all goes back to expectations, man. When you this team was just in the NFC Championship, and there's a lot of people that think that they should get back there or better. And that's why I said in my prediction, let's pump the brakes, because if you really looked over the offseason, they didn't do much to address their biggest issues. They addressed some things, but not enough to be like, oh, wow, this team is really going to make a deep playoff run. No. As much as we can believe in Jaden Daniels, which I believe in Jaden Daniels wholeheartedly, I also see that he is the bucket right now. And the Green Bay Packers was inclement weather in a house that has holes. And it just got another hole because Austin Eckler is out for the season. There's only so much that Jaden Daniels' greatness can do before that bucket overflows, or those buckets overflow. And we saw them overflow on Thursday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers. And that is why, as much as I'm a fan, as much as I'm excited to see them for the rest of the season, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. On top of that, they have one of the toughest schedules in football. I think we're closer to contender status than rebuild status, but I don't think we are contenders just yet. And Thursday Night Football was a clear indication, not just that game, but a lot of the issues that you saw from the Commanders against the Packers, you saw a lot last year, which kind of held them back from being a Super Bowl caliber team. Congratulations to the Packers for beating the Washington Commanders 27-18. So with Thursday Night Football, we say this almost every single week. With Thursday Night Football, that means it is the start of a new NFL week. This is week 2, and I'm going to give my predictions of who I believe is going to win. Now, before I do that, I have sort of a gripe that I want to discuss. I think there's always going to be a sector of people that have an issue with something. And the term is you can't please everybody, and that is 1,000% true. People are always going to find an issue in something. So with that caveat, let me throw my issue out to the world. I work in television, like outside of the podcast, I work in television. And I understand the importance of putting a good product out there. I understand the importance of putting your best foot forward because you're hoping that your best foot forward will bring more people in, would bring, the eyes that the most amount of eyes that you can get. There are, you can say, 3 marquee time slots for the NFL every week. Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and Monday Night Football. Now, I know that you have the game of the week, which is at 4:15 or 4:25 on Fox, but the prime time slots, Thursday Night Football, because that's the standalone game usually, Sunday Night Football, because that's the standalone game, and Monday Night Football, because whether it's one game or like this week, 2 games, they're the standalone games. I have absolutely nothing against the Atlanta Falcons and Michael Penix. I have absolutely nothing against J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings. But from a scheduling standpoint, week 1, you knocked it out the park. The first standalone game was the most popular team in football, plus the defending or the reigning champs, the Dallas Cowboys against the Eagles. Your next Friday night game, your next standalone game, saw Patrick Mahomes and the team, that has been a dynasty that's, trying to get back to that place that has Patrick Mahomes, who's arguably the best quarterback in the league, against a divisional rival in the LA Chargers with Justin Herbert, and you're in Sao Paulo. Then you have the standalone game on Sunday. Arguably the best playoff game that we had last year in a rematch, the Baltimore Ravens against the Buffalo Bills. And you even had a really good Monday Night Football game, the Bears and the Vikings. Number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, going up against, I think, number 4 or 5 overall pick in J.J. McCarthy. or at least the fourth or fifth quarterback picked in that draft, J.J. McCarthy. Again, I have absolutely no quarrels, no issues with Atlanta and Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings, but how in God's green and lovely earth do you have the Super Bowl rematch? The Eagles at Kansas City. How do you have that in week 2? And that is not a standalone game. That's the game of the week, but that's not Sunday Night Football. That's not Monday Night Football. That's not Thursday Night Football. How do you have that game at 4:25 when the marquee game that day is going to be Atlanta at Minnesota, especially after we just saw Minnesota for Monday Night Football? Make that make sense. What do you think is more of a draw, right? The Super Bowl rematch, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley going up against Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, or Michael Penix and the Atlanta Falcons going up against J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. This doesn't make sense to me. But I'll get off my soapbox now. It is what it is. Let's start with Jacksonville at Cincinnati. I'll be the one to say it because I haven't heard a lot of people say it this week. If Cincinnati played a better team, if they played a better quarterback, if Joe Flacco didn't have 2 interceptions, both of which was off the hands of the receiver, they would have lost game 1. Meaning all we have to do is play in the preseason. You know, we're going to have to get on track early. All that would have been out the window, and they would have lost game 1. The offense wasn't clicking. The defense wasn't really clicking. They were just playing a team that could not capitalize on the offensive side of the ball in moments that the Cincinnati Bengals could. I don't know how that's going to fare against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, we have seen the NFL career of Trevor Lawrence. And we know that he is almost like a roller coaster. When he's at his best, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. When he's at his worst, I did like what we saw from Travis Etienne game 1. And how it looked like he's having, or at least week 1 was a resurgence week. If he can carry that into, no pun intended. Ooh, that sounded good. If he can carry that momentum into this game and have to put the pressure on the Cincinnati Bengals defense, I'm going to say Jacksonville wins this game. Because Jacksonville looked much better than, even at their worst in week 1, Jacksonville looked better than Cincinnati Bengals. Now, again, if the Bengals play up to their standard, especially offensively, this is a moot point. But we haven't seen that. So I'm going to go with Jacksonville going into Cincinnati and winning. The Giants at Dallas. Now, I know when I did my NFC East predictions, I said that Dallas could find themselves as the last, especially after giving up Michael Parsons, they can find themselves as the last team in the division. That was before I saw what the Giants look like week 1, especially offensively. Their defense is going to be good. Back up. Their pass rush is going to be good. I still think their pass rush is going to be one of the best in the league. But I also don't like their back end of the defense. It is, there's not much good about this team except for the pass rush and Malik Neighbors. But if you get another game, if you get the same game that we got from Russell Wilson in week 2 that we got from week 1, Dallas is going to walk in there or Giants are going to walk into Dallas or Arlington and get embarrassed. As much as I don't want to admit it, Dallas is a better team than the Giants. And I think Dallas is going to win, which is going to bring yet another wave of Jackson Dart to start. Because if this is a shootout, which I don't think it would be after what we saw week one from the new Giants, this can get ugly quick. Because if it wasn't for, 4 CeeDee Lamb drops, Dallas would be 1-0 right now after beating the defending champs. So I have Dallas beating the Giants. Chicago at Detroit. A lot of people have Detroit on upset alert, and I'm not one of those people. Detroit looked horrible. They just looked like they couldn't get anything just going, both offensively or defensively, against the Green Bay Packers. Now, we are talking about a team that a lot of people, including myself, have going to the Super Bowl now, but still, it just didn't click. It just didn't work. And I know that there was a small stretch in the first quarter where the Chicago Bears looked great. They looked damn near unstoppable. But that was a very small stretch. Then you had the rest of the game where it was essentially a stalwart until that fourth quarter where they just completely crumbled. I have the Detroit Lions beating this Chicago Bears team. And if that happens and we get more of what we got from Caleb Williams in week 2, Wednesday's episode is going to be extremely interesting. I'll just say that. But I do have Detroit beating the Chicago Bears. I got the Rams going to Tennessee. Cam Ward was kind of let down by his team. Now, we saw that in the preseason, and we saw that week 1. It's just Calvin Ridley had a huge drop or 2 huge drops. What I assumed about the Tennessee Titans is what we got week 1. And sort of what I assumed about the Rams we got week 1. The Rams can be explosive offensively, and they have key stops because they have really good players. Jared Verse is really good on the defensive side of the ball for the Rams. Now, we have, especially last year, we saw a few games where Matthew Stafford just looked horrible. Like, he looked god-awful. And I will say the Tennessee defense is always pretty good. But I don't think they're going to be that good this week, and I have the Rams going into Tennessee and winning. I think the Rams, when they're both playing at their best, the Rams are a better team. And Matthew Stafford is a top 10 quarterback in the league. Cam Ward is not at that level yet. And the Rams have a top 10 offense, or could have a top 10 offense in the league. The Titans are not that yet. So I have the Rams beating the Tennessee Titans. New England at Miami. Now, it was a rough week for both of these teams, but I think the biggest loser of week 1 was Miami. They need a huge turnaround. Now, it's never a good sign when you have a players-only meeting. It is a horrendous sign when you have a players-only meeting after week 1. The sky is falling in Miami. And because of that, I'm going to go with New England beating Miami. I think Miami could win this game, and if they do, I don't think that means they're going to get back on track. But at this very moment, even though he looked bad in week 1, I'm trusting Drake May over Tua right now. Because, again, when you have a players-only meeting after week 1, that is never a good sign. You hear a lot of former players saying, oh, yeah, you're having a players-only meeting this early on. Yeah, no, it's curtains. That's what I'm saying. The San Francisco 49ers going into New Orleans. I don't think there's another team that over the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years has been cursed as heavily as the San Francisco 49ers has when it comes to injuries. Maybe the Lions last year, but, bro, Brock Purdy's out already. Brock Purdy's out. George Kittle's out. Like, Brandon Ayuk is still out. I don't know. This team is just continues to get riddled with injuries and to key positions, to key players. Now, the 49ers are lucky they're playing against arguably the worst team in football in the Saints. Even though I will give credit to the Saints, Spencer Rattler looked really good last year. Not last year. Looked much better than I thought he would look last week. They lost, but Spencer Rattler looked pretty good. I just don't think it's going to matter against the 49ers because even the players that are playing, Christian McCaffrey's playing, Fred Warner's playing, Nick Bosa's playing. I don't know. Those are still those are still tough to handle. So I'm going to go with who is the 49ers backup quarterback? Give me a second. That's important in this conversation here. Hold on. Mac Jones. Can Mac Jones get a win in New Orleans? You're going to lean heavily on Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to go with the 49ers. Yeah, I'll go with the 49ers. Buffalo at New York, or the Jets. The Jets played really good against the Steelers, even though they lost, 34-32. They played really good. However, they were not playing against arguably the best quarterback in the league right now, and they were not playing against a mobile quarterback. Now, I think the Jets played really well as a complete team, as a whole team, but the Buffalo Bills, more specifically, Josh Allen's a different beast. And because of that, I have the Buffalo Bills winning this game. There's a difference playing against 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers and MVP Josh Allen. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Seattle at Pittsburgh. We know, you guys saw, I was much more high on Seattle than I was, or than a lot of people were going into the season. And I still think Seattle has one of the best teams in football, especially defensively, even though they showed their whole ass on week one. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, as great as their defense is, they were in a shootout. Their defense gave up 32 points. Seattle's offense did not look good on week one, and they're playing against a better defense in week two. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh, they're at home. They have the better defense, at least on paper. And Aaron Rodgers looked incredible week one. I think he had 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, even though I do think he was sacked like 4 times. But I don't like Pittsburgh's offensive line, but Aaron was slicing and dicing. I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Seattle Seahawks. Fun fact, I think this is the last time they played each other was in the Super Bowl, I believe. I could be wrong, but yeah. I have the Cleveland Browns going against the Baltimore Ravens. If there is one team that you do not want to face right now after what we saw week one, is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I don't think you need extra motivation to play well and to play good, but if Baltimore needs more motivation than what happened in the fourth quarter of that game, it's especially seeing they scored 40 points and still lost, and you're going up against a team that only scored 16 and that has your former Super Bowl winning quarterback on the other side. Yeah, I think it's – and then on top of that, You got everybody and they mama for Cleveland talking about this game. Yeah, nah. I think Baltimore. And you're going into, like, Cleveland is going into Baltimore. Yeah, no, I think Baltimore is going to destroy them. I believe. I know it's a divisional game. I know that last year, Jameis Winston had the game of his life against them, Baltimore. But Jameis Winston ain't the quarterback. Baltimore about to have a field day with the Browns, I believe. And Baltimore has a lot of things, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to clean up. Yeah, I got Baltimore destroying Cleveland, to be honest with you. Denver at the Colts. Now, you may think to yourself, the Colts looked like gangbusters week 1. Put up 33 points against Miami. The defense was great. Daniel Jones was great. You'd think, Bo Nix didn't look good week 1. This Denver team didn't look really good week 1, even though they got to win. Please don't let it fool you. I think a lot of the Colts getting 33 was just inept football from the Dolphins more than just great football from the Colts. And I think they're going to go back down to earth against the Denver Broncos, especially defensively. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to have nearly the amount of success against that defense. Now, offensively, I don't know. I know the Colts do have a good defense, and Bo Nix, again, didn't look good. But I don't know if Daniel Jones is getting half of what he got against that Denver defense. So I'm going to go with Denver. I think this is going to be more – this game we're going to see – I could be wrong, but I feel like this game we're going to see what we thought we would see majority of the season from the Colts. So I have Denver winning this game. Carolina at Arizona. Look, I feel like I am one of the rare people that isn't trying to kill Bryce Young. Like, I'm trying to find every which way I possibly can to defend him. Week 1 was horrific. And I don't think it's going to be much better week 2 because even though they're young, Arizona has a good defense, sort of. And I got Arizona winning. I know you're going. I got Arizona winning. And I just hope Bryce Young looks good, but I don't know. Week 1 was such a letdown. He looked so bad. He looked so bad. I was thinking to myself, this experiment might be over. Like, that's as a number 1 overall pick. Again, I know we talked about the momentum from last season. At least week 1, it didn't carry. So we'll see. But I have Arizona winning this game. Philadelphia at Kansas City. Super Bowl rematch. One team is 1-0. Other team is 0-1. You're going into Arrowhead. However, Kansas City is without their top 2 receivers. Their offensive line still ain't good. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles are fully loaded. Jalen Carter's not suspended, or at least they said it that game. Game 1 was his suspension. I think Philadelphia is going to, on top of that, Kansas City defense hasn't been as great as it's used to being, at least week 1. Now, I do think as a passer, Justin Herbert is much better than Jalen Hurts. But when we talk about, the run game and a complete game, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are much better than the Chargers. So I have the Eagles winning the rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs, going 2-0 on the season. I just think Kansas City, they're breaking down. Again, their top 2 receivers, one of them suspended, one of them dislocated his shoulder running into Travis Kelce, or Travis Kelce running into him. Either way, he's out. And I think that's going to be huge when your number 1 receiver now is who? Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown. No, not against this team. Not against the exciting whites. It's just not happening. So I have the Eagles winning this game. Atlanta at Minnesota. Now, and this is Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football for whatever reason. Atlanta looked pretty good until it didn't in week 1 against the Bucs. Now, the Bucs are the Super Bowl caliber team. But Atlanta looked pretty good. And then Minnesota looked terrible until the fourth quarter. So do you take what we saw from the fourth quarter, or do you take what we saw from the entire game when we talk about Minnesota? Atlanta, as great as they were, they still had a lot of issues that ultimately cost them against the Bucs. I'm going to go with Minnesota. Their strength is still their defense. And Brian Flores was cooking up schemes against Caleb Williams and the Bears in week 1. And I think that that's going to, even if J.J. McCarthy has a bad, game, I think the defense is going to be able to carry them against this high-powered offense in Atlanta. So I have Minnesota winning this game. And you're going into Minnesota. So I got Minnesota winning this game. Monday Night Football, I talked about my issues with a doubleheader. I talked about that last year. Obviously, my opinion don't matter because they do it. They're doing it again. The first matchup is at 7 o'clock. On Monday, they have the Tampa Bay at Houston. Look, I said this before, and I'll say it again. Houston's offensive line is, at least last year and what we saw week 1, was one of the worst performances you can see from a team. Their offensive line was horrible. And that's why I'm not saying that C.J. Stroud necessarily had a sophomore slump. It's just you lost your top 2 receiver or 2 of your top 3 receivers to injury, plus your offensive line was terrible. That's a tough thing to overcome. You're going up against one of the best defenses in football in the Bucs. Now, yes, I will admit that the Houston, they have probably one of the best secondaries. When you talk about Lassiter, when you talk about Stingley, that's tough to deal with. And Baker Mayfield might have a couple turnovers, but I don't know if this offensive line can hold up for the Houston Texans. So because of that, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going into Houston and winning. Until they get that situated, it's a no-go. And then you have the Chargers at Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Geno Smith was slicing and dicing week 1. He was going crazy. But you are going up against a better caliber, because he went up against the Patriots. The Chargers, in my opinion, just on a different level. Drake May is not on the same level right now as Justin Herbert. But Geno was slicing and I think they're getting Brock Bowers back. He was slicing and dicing without Brock Bowers. Yeah, I'm still going to go with the Chargers. I think the Chargers, what I saw against the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're a really good team. And I just think they're better than the Vegas Raiders. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. That is my prediction for week 2. Can't wait to see if and when my predictions are correct. So we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, the WNBA season is over. And I want to give my WNBA awards out, my prediction of who's going to win the awards. And I have to start with 2, actually, because these 2 are synonymous with each other. That is the Coach of the Year and Most Improved Player of the Year. Quiet as kept, the NBA takes a lot of their rules that we see now. They tested out in the WNBA first, and they allowed the WNBA to perfect it before they okay, are we going to do this or not? How does it look or not? On top of that, 9 times out of 10, the WNBA does it much better than the men's side when we just talk about the rules. When we talk about the all-star formatting, a lot of what you see in the NBA, even though it's all over the place, but the women have tried it. Other leagues, NFL, NHL, MLB, if you want to take note of how to successfully run a first-year expansion team, look at what the Golden State Valkyrie did their first year in the WNBA. Going into this season, nobody expected the Golden State Valkyrie to be good, because usually expansion teams are not good the first year or two. I think it was like 2 or 3 years before is it Vegas Golden Knights? Before they were really good, but still, remember the Utah. Utah wasn't that good the first year. We talk about NHL. Remember the Orlando Magic when they became a team? Horrid. Usually expansion teams do not work. Normally expansion teams are not good, which is why it is incredible that the Golden State Valkyrie not only exceeded expectations, but they made the playoffs their first year. Again, nobody expected. If you look at any analyst that talked about them before the season, if you looked at any predictions, if you listen to what I said, nobody thought, because usually expansion teams aren't good, nobody thought they would be good. So when I'm giving out my awards, I have to talk about the Coach of the Year and the Most Improved Player of the Year. Coach of the Year, I know I'm going to probably say your last name wrong, but Natalie Nakase, I know, I apologize. For Coach of the Year, I apologize if I said your name wrong. And Veronica Burton for Most Improved Player. Again, nobody expected because I don't want to butcher your last name, I'm just going to say Natalie, so please don't take offense to it. I apologize. It's not. But you have to give it to Natalie. Nakase, I think that's how you say her name. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong. But you take an expansion team first year and make the playoffs. Now, I know there's less games in the W. There's less teams, but still. There are teams that are more established that didn't even make it. So that's why Natalie Nakase, I think, that's why she is my Coach of the Year. And Veronica Burton, let me just give you a number. Last year, she played 31 games. She only started one of those games, and she averaged 3 points last year. Just 3. Compared to this year, she started all 44 games that she was in, and she averaged 12 points. That is a 9-point jump. You don't really see that much in either the NBA or WNBA. That just don't really happen like that. Veronica Burton was one of the main reasons why the Valkyries more than exceeded expectations this year and made the playoffs. So because of that, I have Natalie Nakase. I apologize for saying your name wrong if I did. And Veronica Burton, both as Coach of the Year and Most Improved Player of the Year. Let me go with 6 Woman of the Year. And I think this is one of the easier ones to determine. I don't think there was a person coming off the bench more impactful than Naz Hillman for the Atlanta Dream. Mind you, Ryan Howard missed a good amount of time. In fact, a lot of their best players missed a good amount of time outside of Nas Hillman. And I know when you look at the numbers, they're not eye popping. Pretty much if you round up 9 points a game, 4 assists, but she was very important for them making the playoffs this year. A lot of their top players were out, and she was still able to back up someone like Alicia Gray, or like I said, Ryan Howard. I don't think there was a more impactful bench player than Nas Hillman, and she is a big reason why, again, Atlanta made the playoffs. So her shooting was a lot better. Yeah, I have not. I think this is. I don't think that there was really a close second, in my opinion, to this race. I have Nas Hillman from the Atlanta Dream winning the 6th Woman of the Year. Then you got the Defensive Player of the Year. I think that this was actually a tough one because it was between two people. It was between Alana Smith and Nafisa Collier. Actually, 3 people. Alana Smith, Nafisa Collier, and jaWilson. And the reason why I gave it to Alana Smith is because, A, the Minnesota Lynx is the top team, even with Nafisa Collier missing as much time as she did. They're the top team in the W going into the playoffs. They're the number 1 seed. On top of that, even with Nafisa Collier being out, they would put Alana Smith on their best player. Now, Nafisa Collier was incredible defensively. When she was playing, she's an MVP conversation. I'll give my MVP in a second. But when you have a player as great as Nafisa Collier and you're still putting Alana Smith on their best offensive player, and you have the top team in the W, I'm going to give it to Alana Smith. I would love to give it to jaWilson, but we'll talk about that in a second. I have Alana Smith as the Defensive Player of the Year. I think it was very close between those 3, but again, Minnesota being the number 1 seed and Nafisa Collier missing a lot of time and them putting Alana Smith on the best player usually and her doing a really good job at it, I have Alana Smith as the Defensive Player of the Year. Now, let me get on my soapbox for a second. I am not hating. I am not saying that she shouldn't win. In fact, I think Paige Bueckers is going to and should win Rookie of the Year. I don't think there was another rookie as impactful as Paige Bueckers this year for her team. Now, I know that the Dallas Wings did not make the playoffs, but Paige Bueckers was incredible. Paige Bueckers had an incredible first season. I mean, she finished the season averaging 19 points a game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals, essentially. She was an all-around player at 23. I get that. And this is me just not, and honestly, it's not just my fandom for the Mystics, but I don't think Paige Bueckers should win unanimously. I think she should win, but I think Sonia Citron should get some votes. I think Kiki should get some votes. Both breaking franchise records. I think Kiki had the most double-doubles by a rookie in franchise history, and I know Sonia Citron, she scored the most points by a rookie in Mystics history. Especially them, all of them being a all-star. I know Paige Bueckers is going to win Rookie of the Year, and I think she deserves Rookie of the Year. I just hope that, Sonata Citron, Sonia Citron, and Kiki get some votes. Also, I know people don't like Caitlin Clark. Cool. However you feel about Caitlin Clark is your business. I'm not here to change your mind. But let's slow down. Because I don't know how many times I'm hearing people say, yo, Paige Beckers is who we thought Caitlin Clark, or is who people are propping Caitlin Clark to be. Like, Paige Beckers is a much better WNBA player than Caitlin Clark. Paige Beckers is going to be a better player than Caitlin Clark ever was. Wait, what? Look, I love Paige Beckers. I think she's going to win Rookie of the Year. I think she is an incredible player. She has a national championship at UConn. I think she's great. Let's not forget who we're talking about. We're talking about Caitlin Clark. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Caitlin Clark, let's say Caitlin Clark, if she's Steph Curry, Paige Beckers is Trae Young. Still good, but come on now. Let's not disrespect either one of them players. Come on. And then you got my MVP. To me, this was the hardest because a lot of things factored into why one person won compared to why another person didn't. The two, I know that Alyssa Thomas is in this race, but I think it's a two-man race. I think it's between Nafisa Collier and Angel Wilson. Angel Wilson had an Angel Wilson season. Angel Wilson had a typical Angel Wilson season. Now, you're probably hearing me say that and think to yourself, well, damn, Jalen, you're really minimizing Angel Wilson's season. No, that's me saying just how great Angel Wilson is. There's a reason why she's currently a 3-time MVP. Angel Wilson, there was a lot of questions and narratives going into the season or asking who's the best player in the W. Angel Wilson slammed the door on that conversation and showed people why she is still the best player in the W. Even though she didn't win MVP last year, she's showing, not only should that MVP have been mine, I am still the best player in the W. She had a typical Angel Wilson season. She finished 24 points or 23 points a game, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2.3 blocks a game. She also finished shooting 51, 42, and 86. So 51, 42, 86 splits. While taking about 10 to 15 shots a game. Angel Wilson is her. Angel Wilson is by far the best player in the W. Now, you have Nafisa Collier, who is and was not that far off from Angel Wilson. She finished with 23 points a game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and if you round up, 2 blocks and 2 steals. And Nafisa Collier became the second player ever in WNBA history to finish the season on 50, 40, 90. Now, for people that don't remember, that is 50% from the field, 30% from the free throw, and 90% from the field or from the free throw line. There's not too many NBA players that's currently playing that have done that. I think there's only 3, maybe 4. There's a couple. But the noticeable ones I remember is Malcolm Brogdon did it. Steph Curry did it. Kyrie Irving did it. And Kevin Durant did it. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but that is a very rare feat. And in the W, only one other player has done it, and that is Elena Deladon. Nafisa Collier had a season to remember. Not only was she one of the best players in the W, but she led the Minnesota Lynx to the best record in the league. But the reason why the reason why I'm picking Angel Wilson as the MVP is because of how the season ended. Nafisa Collier, and obviously it wasn't her fault, but she missed, I think, 11 games, 10 or 11 games, and finished the season a tad bit bumpy. I mean, I know their last few games, they went 2, 4, 5. They went 4 out of 5. Shout out to them. That is the Minnesota Lynx, but the Vegas Aces finished on a 16-game win streak. And when they played against each other, I think, and that's another thing. When the race is as close as it is, and you get to play against that opponent, that is when I think those matchups count huge or count a lot more than normal. For instance, the year it was an extremely close race for MVP when we were talking about Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid played Nikola Jokic late in the season, and Joel Embiid, I think, killed Nikola Jokic. I think that is kind of what solidified Joel Embiid winning that MVP. On top of that, you kind of saw that as well, even though he had an incredible season. You kind of saw that last year as well. The MVP race got extremely close between Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous, and then when they played each other, he didn't kill him, but he outplayed Nikola Jokic. I think when the race is that close, that's when you these matchups go against, or these matchups are important. So when you go up against Angel Wilson and you only score 12 points, when Angel Wilson scores 31, yeah, and gets the win, yeah. I know that they beat them by like 50 points earlier in the season, but the last matchup, Asia went on. And now I think about it, Asia, I think she had like, she has the most 30-point games in the regular season for sure. Like, I think it's a razor thin award this year. And I'm giving it to Asia Wilson. 1, because she played more games. 2, because she's the best player in the league. And 3, because the last time they met up, both of them were healthy, both of them played. Asia well outperformed Nafisa Collier. And that's who I have winning my awards. Now, I'm gonna give my predictions I'm gonna give my predictions now, actually. I don't know. Hold up. WNBA playoff bracket. I don't know who. Let me say this. As I'm going to be fair. Because I was very vocal last year with Oregon. And I said, how the hell did Oregon not get a fair shake at all when we talk about the college football playoffs? Now, I know that this is a completely different sport. Cool. But no offense to Seattle, no offense to Atlanta, no offense to the Fever, but if you look at the road that the Vegas Aces has to get to the NBA or WNBA finals compared to the Minnesota Lynx, where they got Minnesota has to first go up against the Valkyrie. Then they have to play the winner of either Phoenix or the reigning champions in New York. That's tough. So I'm gonna still say, however, that the Minnesota Lynx are going to square off against the Vegas Aces in the finals. And the way that the Vegas Aces are playing right now, going into the playoffs, the momentum that they have, I have Vegas winning the championship. I know that going into the season, I had the Minnesota Lynx, but I have the Vegas Aces. The way that they're playing, the way that they figured everything out, I was extremely wrong. I remember coming in here saying that Vegas should blow it up. I was wrong. They found a way how to use Jackie Young to the best of her ability. They found a way to use Jewel Lloyd, is what I was talking about. They found a way to use Jewel Lloyd to the best of her ability. Chelsea Gray has had a reemergence throughout the season. This Vegas Aces team, even though a lot of the issues that they had going into the biggest issue that they had was they didn't have a bench. You bring Jackie or Jewel Lloyd, off the bench, that has changed everything for this team. I think Vegas is going to win the championship. The same team I wrote off halfway through the season, I think completely turned it around, and I have them winning the championship. So we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, and this is the last topic of the day. You know, this whole Angel Reese thing is a really good barometer of how much quote-unquote excuse you give the player compared to the organization for whatever's going on. The end of this season did not end well for Angel Reese or the Chicago Sky. Chicago Sky struggled mightily throughout the whole season, but Angel Reese comes out and has essentially I don't know if it was a sit-down interview. I don't know what it was, but she pretty much lit up her team talking about, we need to be much better for next year. I'm not going to tolerate this. Like, she was just going off on her team. And her team obviously didn't take one, your second-year player, two, you're on this team too, even though we're not that good. It was just nasty. And idiotically, they suspended her for a half, not a game, a half. I'm like, bro, if you're going to suspend her for a game. If you're not going to suspend her, don't do that. But this whole suspending for a half, this isn't college football. What are we doing? And even college football, we look at it as stupid. The team finished 10-34. Like, come on. But the questions now arise, what are they going to do next with Angel Reese? Because Angel Reese did not return she didn't return, like, at all. They were saying it was back issues. She had a back pain. Okay, cool. The season was already over. Essentially, it is what it is. But she did not return. And now you're hearing, what's next for Angel Reese? Are they going to trade her? She had comments detrimental to the team, which it was detrimental. Do the teammates even want to play with her? Here's my thing. Do I think Angel Reese was in the wrong? Yes. There are things that you say to the media. There are things that you don't say to the media. She went full-blown what you don't say. And I don't know the young lady's name, so I apologize. I can't give you the proper credit for bringing this to the attention. But why is it always something going on with the Chicago Sky? And she even mapped it out beautifully. I'll try to find the video and link it down low, but she talked about how they handled Sylvia Fowles, who is now in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. They talk about how they handled not just Chicago legend Candace Parker, but how they handled that exit, how they handled her award presentation, and they couldn't even iron out the name, or they couldn't iron her banner. They talk about how they lost Kalea Copper, Finals MVP. They talk about how they lost Elena Deladon. Why is it that almost every time Chicago has a big name athlete, they lose them? I'm not saying that Angel Reese is not going to be there next year. I'm not saying that they have to trade her. What I'm saying is this is yet another star. And a lot of it is on her, but this is yet another star that has issues with the organization in the front office and how the team is constructed, how things are done. Why does this keep happening to the Chicago Sky? You know, there's a friend of mine. He was in a 5-year relationship. And he kept talking about the problems that he had in his 5-year relationship. And I was thinking, I mean, if the relationship isn't serving you, if these problems still permeate and you can't get over the problems, you should leave. And he did. Then he went to another relationship, and what do you know? The same exact problems he had from that 5-year relationship was in a new relationship. So at this point, you kind of have to look inward. You kind of have to look at yourself and be like, maybe I'm the problem. I'm not saying that the Chicago Sky should be at fault for the comments that Angel Reese said about her team. That is all on Angel Reese. I think Angel Reese needs to be a little more mature, and she needs to know what she can and cannot say to the media. But I am looking at the Chicago Sky and saying that every single star that you've had not only isn't there anymore outside of Angel Reese, but their ending to their Chicago Sky tenure was not good. Candace Parker won a championship. She was gone the next year. She won a championship with the Chicago Sky and did not start the season with them the next year. Kalea Copper, Finals MVP. She was gone, I think, after 2 years, after winning that. Like, Elena Deladon, arguably the best player you've had. She leaves, wins a championship in Washington. Probably the best player you had. You drafted Sylvia Fowles, and she refused to play another game for that organization. So they traded her to the Lynx, I believe, and the rest is history. Angel Reese needs to be better, and I don't know if she'll be on this team next year or not. But it kind of goes back to what Tom Brady said. He was on the Colin Cowherd show, and he was talking about the development of quarterbacks. And he was saying, well, when do we ever look at the organization and maybe they don't know how to develop a quarterback? Maybe the people that they put in place don't know how to develop quarterbacks. Maybe the Chicago Sky don't know how to handle star players. Maybe the Chicago Sky might not be a well-run organization. And because you had a great player like Candace Parker, you had great players, kind of overshadows the fact of how they all left the team in messy situations. I know Alea Deladon was talking about personal reasons. All the reports are saying that most of them personal reasons was she did not like how the organization was run. We'll see, I guess. But Angel Reese is a young star. And this is yet another star that, if we do see her in another uniform, ended poorly with the Chicago Sky. And there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link's in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. If you already subscribe, like, follow, or share it to somebody that you know is not subscribed. It definitely means a lot. For my DSP listeners, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, please follow, please rate, please comment. I'm trying to grow the podcast unilaterally, and I cannot do it without you guys. No platform is more important than the other, so please, please, please follow, share, comment, rate. It all means a lot. For my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, please follow. I post pretty much daily there. That's probably the quickest way to get to me. If you want to go back and forth, I don't mind it. Just keep it respectful, and we can go back and forth. It just means that you're listening to me. It just means that you're passionate about whatever we're talking about. I do not mind debating in the comments. Just keep it respectful, and follow, and we can go back and forth. But I appreciate you guys. Until next time, much love.